Welcome to TLC, where we dive into the heart of our local community. It's wineries, restaurants, business, and real estate. Hi, I'm Troy Anderson, along with my co-host Pamela.
Hello.
Hey, and we're here to bring you a new perspective on what's happening in our community. This week we have a guest on the show, Dave Hunter, owner of Crown Bees, right here in Woodinville.
Well, good
Welcome
afternoon.
to the show.
Thanks, Troy.
I'm excited to have you on.
This is going to be fun.
Yes.
It's going to be a different yet very interesting conversation.
No, and I think it's going to, yes.
Let's unpack Dave. But first, I've heard there's something else that goes on.
There is.
Yes.
First of all, we've got our Sipping on Success. No, we don't. Yes, it is. That's what it's called. I don't know what I'm doing today.
Where's my producer?
She has left the building. All right, so let's pedal back a little bit. So we are going to open a bottle of wine. What have we got and why?
Okay, I've got for us a special selection from Darby Winery right here in the Hollywood district of Woodinville. And I picked out their 2020 Chaos. It's a Columbia Valley blend. 60% Cabernet, 20% Malbec, 10% Petit Verdot, and 10% Cabernet Franc.
Well, the name is very apt for today's
Chaos.
show because it's chaos already. I can't even remember the name of the segment. So.
Okay, so in fairness, how is this going to, what's the bouquet that we should be smelling?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Well,
I wonder,
Well-
how professional are you guys?
well, of course we're very professional. But
professional.
what I will tell you is what you smell and what I smell
Two
in the bouquet
different
are going to
things.
be maybe two different things. So we've had a few winemakers on the show, and we've kind of had this conversation with them, like what I taste could be different. Everyone's palate is different, and I think your nose and your taste buds are actually connected in a way. So you might smell something different, but it's going to be interesting. It's always interesting to see what people think. You know what they're smelling, and
I smell cherries.
you smell cherries. Okay,
I
Dave,
do.
what do you smell? I haven't even put my nose in the glass yet.
Gotta swirl it around first.
Swirl it.
Swirl it around our
aerate it.
Woodinville wine country wine glasses.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So
Yeah, it's very fruity to me.
Yeah,
Not earthy, but fruity.
it's very fruity, yeah.
yeah. Did you say cherries?
I did say cherries. What do you smell?
I do actually get that. So it's really interesting. So I took a deep breath in, and then the edges at the back of my tongue started to salivate, like you know when you eat a tart cherry.
Before you drank it?
Wow.
Yes, I haven't even tasted it yet.
Wow, Pamela, you're
I'm good.
it's either good talk.
No, seriously, I think, well, we've been doing this, I mean, this is season 2, so, you know, we've got, almost 40 episodes under our
Yeah.
belt here. So I've gone from knowing
You've
nothing.
drank a lot of wine.
Don't tell people that. I've sampled a little bit. Nobody's saying I drank the whole glass. But, yeah, that was really quite interesting. I've not had that happen before, where it literally, the inhale translated onto my tongue. And I haven't even tried it yet. So while I take a sip, what are you guys tasting?
I haven't tasted it yet. I've just been smelling.
Okay, Troy, I guarantee you've had a taste already.
Oh, yeah, I dive right in.
No holding you back. Okay.
holding.
What have you got for us?
It's a little tart on the finish. It's a little drier on the finish than I expected, being that fruit forward in the smell. I get taste of like currants, like a salad with currants on it. Not
Yeah,
the salad
it's
taste, but the currants.
Like blackcurrant?
Yeah, blackcurrant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit of blackberry.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a softness to it as well, and I don't know if that's a little bit of plum that I'm tasting.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the bouquet is definitely cherry heavy, yet the taste is not quite so much on the cherry.
Dave, you have anything to say?
He looks like he's ruminating over there, and he's, you know.
No, and this is one of those things where you're saying, my wine cellar is 3 bottles deep. So we just
Okay.
drink the wine, and do I have a high appreciation of good wine? This is good wine.
Okay, good, good.
And so we could almost just leave it there, but I'm going to say, what you guys said. I would say
That's a cop-out, Dave.
brown currants, but you know, I think
Brown currants. Not quite black
not
yet.
quite black as little.
Uh-huh.
It is. I'm going to just a bright finish. Would we use those words?
Yeah, we would use those words. It does have a bright finish. It dries, it kind of goes dry, and then there's the alcohol residual, I think, is what brings the brightness out.
Yeah. The dryness isn't straight away, though.
No.
It's almost like you have to wait a second, and then you get that kind of real removal on the middle of, well, for me it's on the middle of the tongue. I don't know where it's hitting you, but it's
me too.
Now, if I were to eat something with this,
Oh.
I think
here we
the
go.
whole,
It would change,
the whole
yeah.
taste would very much change. And I think it would lose its brightness. It would just kind of
Potentially.
complement, I'm
Yeah.
guessing. So, wait, what type of place is this? Where's my
Where's the
lunch?
food?
Yes.
Well, next time.
Yeah, we should have cheese
Yeah.
or something, right? So we should
Okay,
we should
next
do
time
that next time. Yeah.
we should get a charcuterie board and we
Oh.
won't actually do any work. We'll just sit here and eat and
Just sit
drink.
there and eat. Okay.
This is really nice. And now I've never had anything from this winery, so I
So
appreciate
they've
that.
been here in Woodinville for a long time. They're kind of they were tucked in a corner over by Village Wines, kind of back in the
That's so, yeah.
back in the gallows back there.
Mm-hmm.
They've just redone a new tasting room a couple doors down, closer to Heritage Restaurant, and it is a cool tasting room. It is like a speakeasy in there.
I was going to say, so I know about them because
Oh.
they do have a speakeasy and you have to make
A
Yes.
legit speakeasy?
Yes,
do.
so it's I think
A
it's called
secret room.
Vintage and Vinyl. You have to make a reservation for it.
Yeah, and they've got
yeah. Mm-hmm.
got a record player in there, and it's you have a secret squirrel entrance.
Yeah, my son had the company that he was in. As you go down the hallway, it says custodial, and you go inside there, and it's a custodial room, but you pull on the mop, and the door opens, and then there's a pool table, and everyone has their own mug. It's just like, wow, you can do this downtown Seattle. It's very
Yeah.
speakeasy.
Yeah,
It's-
there's a few speakeasies. That's so easy for me to say today. I don't know what's going on in Seattle, but this is the first one I know that's closer to home.
Yeah.
And I'm actually really intrigued to go check it out.
Yes, you should.
So what a good marketing piece, though. Hey, we've
Huh?
got a speakeasy. Come check us out. And while you're here, have
Well,
a
they
little
said
taste of
they
wine.
said they moved 100 feet and their business has gone through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, how long
But
have you guys
because
been
probably
here?
that. I mean,
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah. And I think it's still just wine that they serve in the speakeasy, but just the fact that it feels a little more exclusive, you know.
You can get food from Heritage, so that's nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Village
So they moved
Wines.
into the quilt shop.
No, they moved into it was Long Shadows before,
Okay.
so it's them, and then Sleight of Hand also moved in next door.
Okay. Well, besides that, it's great wine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still got that kind of salivation of cherry. It's
Even
just,
after drinking.
even after, I'm
Wow.
sitting here like I might need to grab my water
Do you need
because
a
I.
napkin?
It's
You're drooling
not-
over there.
It is not that bad. Stop it. This is really good, and the
Yeah.
color is super robust on this too. It's got a
Yeah,
really,
I think this is a great blend.
yeah, really dark. I'm looking at Troy's glass over the table from me, and there's some legs on that.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, the legs are the viscosity of the drink.
Oh, the
Yeah,
viscosity.
the viscosity.
And mine are about 3 centimeters apart. Is that good or?
I love
Who's
the
the
visuals.
engineer in the room?
Well, I think that might be Dave. The bee engineer. Yeah, the bee engineer. Okay, all right. Well,
All right.
I think we're going to continue to drink this throughout the show and enjoy
Good.
it because it is really good. But we're going to take a very quick break, and when we come back, we are going to talk all things Crown Bees with Dave Hunter. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this
See you in a
very
minute.
short break.
This episode of 10 Life Community is brought to you in part by Ferguson Floors, LLC. Are you ready to sell your home but not sure where to start? Feel like your home may need a few updates to get ready for the market, but you're not ready to take on that project? At 10 Home Team, we have a solution for that. Our pre-listing home renovation program is designed to take the hassle out of preparing your home for the market. Need a fresh coat of paint, new carpets, maybe even a new roof? We've got you covered, all at no upfront cost to you. That's right, we pay for those things upfront and then just get paid at closing. With our total concierge services, your selling experience is elevated to first-class status. Let us handle the updates and renovation while you sit back and relax. Because when you choose 10 Home Team, you're choosing excellence. Get your home ready for market with ease. Contact us today, 206-504-3660, for a no-obligation consultation. That's 206-504-3660. 10 Home Team and Troy Anderson, where selling your home is a seamless experience from the start to sold.
Welcome back to TLC 10 Life Community Podcast. We are here with Dave from Crown Bees right here in Woodinville. So, Dave, how did it all start? Delve into the fascinating world of
fascinating
solitary
bees.
cavity nesting bees.
Okay, so I was a real estate director for
Oh,
really?
Fortune 500 in Seattle. And so
Okay.
Airborne Express was an overnight company, and I had 12 million square feet worth of facilities all across the country. So I project management, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then last recession, when DHL bought us out and then they were losing $1 billion a year,
Ooh.
they said, well, here's some time off, Dave. Thanks for
You
your,
didn't ask for it, but you've got it.
thanks for your 20 years, but best wishes. And back at the last recession, '08,
Yeah.
not many real estate jobs. So,
Yeah, definitely an interesting time to be in real estate.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so there was a backyard hobby that was just kind of going, and I find patterns and chaos kind of easily.
Oh.
Thus, the wine is a good operator.
Nice.
Oh, yes.
Are you trying to tell us you cause chaos as well?
Okay,
He's
not
a
fair, but yeah,
troublemaker.
sure. So let's see, my kid is 31. So 29 years ago, my wife comes home from an aerobics class and said, "Oh my gosh, Dave, there's thousands of apples on this tree wherever I was at." And we look at our big, huge apple tree with like 2 or 3. I said, "Well, go back and find out what they did." And she went back there and she said, "Oh, they've got a thing called mason bees." I said, "What's a mason bee?" And so, wow, there's holes in a block of wood or something. So back then, I went out and drilled some holes in a block of wood. And then that year, there's little somethings. I have little mud seals on these little holes in the block of wood. And within 2 or 3 years, all of a sudden, we had thousands of apples in our backyard.
Oh, wow.
Okay, it's like, well, I am engineer by degree, not by, thank you for Paul. You pulled that one out there, boy. Yeah.
I try.
Yeah. So you just start analyzing how, what is this thing working on and how does it do it? And you fast forward, that was a long time ago, you fast forward to time off and you look at an industry that wasn't there. And well, why? And so I had lots of weeks of severance, and so I'm now calling the researchers around the world and any practitioners that I could find. And there wasn't a lot there, but there was one guy that said, he's a lead researcher in the US, he said, "Dave, go out and watch the movie Bottle Shock."
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now you said that, Troy. I had no clue, and I went back, I found, VHS from the library and plugged in the old machine, and okay, I'm dating, this is an
I
old
was
story.
going to say, we're aging
That old,
ourselves.
is it?
Well, I don't, 15 years ago, 16
Yeah.
years ago, so maybe not that old. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I borrowed a CD. Who knows? Okay. And the whole thing at the tail end of that Bottle Shock thing is California wineries in a blind taste testing in Paris got 1, 2, and 3 of the whites or whatever. And so I came back to Bill Kemp as this lead researcher. I said, okay, California wines are to French wines like mason bees are to honeybee. He goes, yeah, that's exactly right. I said, if they're so superior, how come no one knows about it? He goes, they just don't. I said, but you're getting triple the yields in your orchards. Yep. And I said, okay. So I was able to, over a few years, gather the 50% researchers from around the country and 50% practitioners, and we'd meet once a year, and we became a 503(c), and I wasn't the president any longer. And you move that forward, but then, could I create a company that would buttress this industry? And initially, it was all about the almighty dollar. Can I sell a little cocoon? We'll talk about it in a bit. Could I sell a little mason bee cocoon to a farmer for $0.25 that I maybe raised it myself, and so it's easy money? And there was the premise, and then Molbach's.
Oh, I know.
Then Molbach's reached out and said,
A moment of silence.
yes. Oh gosh. We've done a little video on a memorial for those guys too.
Oh, jeez.
They reached out and said, "Hey, Dave, would you mind coming down here and speak?" It's like, what do I know? I don't know. You're the only guy in town that really knows this thing. Come out here and speak. And so you move through the years of more knowledge, and you create a company, and I don't know, the company progresses. So there's I'm going to say that's the foundation. Other than, what do you name a company? How do you come up with 10? What created the 10? And initially I was Hunters Mason Bees, as I did that, .com, and people are saying, well, is it Hunters apostrophe, or is it
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Are the bees hunting you?
Oh, all that family. So right. So you back into then how do we name this? And so the full family's sitting around empty wine glasses, and everyone, cousins are there, and we all have little strips of paper, and we're all put little names in.
Fun.
And one of my nephews in college said, I can't say it out loud, but a male appendage bees, no.
That's what happened when wine's involved.
Oh my
clearly.
God, yes. And so the real answer is no name came out of there. And it was a little later on, I had Crown Royal around me, something just, and that just, a name has to flow off the tongue.
Mm-hmm.
And
It
that's,
does for sure.
But the official story is all of our bees are queens, and all queens deserve a crown.
There you go.
So that's what's supposed to be out there. The truth of it is like,
You stick with the other story.
yes,
Yeah.
that's much better. Yes.
That's great from a marketing perspective.
All queens have to have a crown.
All queens have to have a crown, absolutely. So it sounds as though almost like crown bees came about by accident, right? It was a circumstance that you were kind of put into. You had this free time, let's call it free time, and you noticed a need for it. But so what were some of the early challenges that you faced for advocating for the native bees? And if we can just kind of, you touched on it a little bit with the the wine analogy that you gave there, but for our audience that are not familiar with the bees,
Right.
can you explain what the solitary
what's the difference?
cavity nesting bees are and why they're considered the super pollinators and not the sad little honeybee that everyone talks about?
So our biggest competitor is ignorance.
Oh,
Okay, and
I feel scolded.
and so you ask the average person. There's 4,000 species of bees across North America. Okay?
Wow.
None of them can mate with each other. So 4,000 species, and you say, "Gosh, Troy, how many of those species make honey?" And Pamela, the
idea.
wise one over here, holds up her hand and goes, "None, Troy. There are no honey-making native bees to North America."
Oh.
Well, where did the honeybee come from? Well, back in the 1500s, there's nothing sweet on the East Coast, and they said, "Hey, bring the honey over." There was nothing for the honeybees to feed on, so they brought the dandelion with them. So all of that was back in the 1500s, and then now we have this one insect. So there's history of it, but then you dig a little further out of those 4,000 species natively in the U.S., 20-some thousand in the world. 90% of them are solitary, meaning every female is a queen. They all live 6 weeks. They show up, they lay their eggs. Those eggs are next year's bees.
huh.
Real simple. So some bees show up early spring, some bees show up in June, July, deep August. And so there's different life cycles that go on with this, but there's the big picture. They lay their eggs into most of them nest in the ground nesting bees, and about a quarter of them nest in cavities, so like a reed or a paper tube or something. So
I've
this
seen
is
those tubes that are like in a
that one. In a bee
something
hotel.
that you mount up on a tree
Condo,
or-
bee condo.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
And if
So-
you're really unlucky, the siding of your house.
yes. Oh yeah, I've had those
Okay,
before
and
too.
those are treasure troves. They don't do any damage. Okay, so this is the insect that we're chatting about, and a little more difference between the honeybee social insect, okay, queen, hive, there's drones, there's workers, there's pollen gatherers, nectar gatherers, sentries, all these nursing
Wow.
cool things in a hive. In the mason bee environment, so solitary bees, the female does everything. The male's role is to procreate and die a few weeks later. Okay.
I want to
Sounds like
laugh.
my kind of
Yeah. Yep.
I'm sitting here with a big smile
yeah,
on my face, like, is it rude to laugh?
and they're done. Okay. And so the female is living the full 6 weeks, and she's doing everything. So if you walk next to a hive and kick it, what's going to happen? You're going to get stung.
Yeah.
Because they're defending all these things. You walk up next to a mason bee house, and they don't need to defend because they're out there gathering the pollen and nectar and the mud or whatever, and they don't have time to defend. So they're gentle. The only way you can really get stung is to grab them in your hand and squeeze them.
Huh.
And then they're going to say, "Hey, don't sting me." And the venom is, there's no known case of anaphylactic shock. So very, very gentle. Last little comparison. The honeybee is super sophisticated. Okay, they've got a cool thing called a waggle dance. This little dance inside the hive is pitch dark, and the angle of the dance matches the declination of the sun on the horizon. The length of the dance is how far to fly. Okay, so these little honeybees all watch various dances and say, there's pollen out there, and they follow the sun, and they go that distance, and there's their pollen. Bring it back to the hive, back to the pollen. Okay, every grain of pollen is needed into a hive. 1,500 eggs are laid a day. 1,500 little mounds of pollen are needed a day. Okay, so they've evolved to collect all the pollen sticky on their hind legs. 95% of the pollen heads back to the hive. It's a pollen-taking insect.
Oh, I see.
Okay, now to contrast that, our little gentle mason bees, very furry, off they go into the field, belly flop into a flower, dry pollen all over their hands. Next flower, belly flop in a flower, and the pollen's just falling off everywhere. And so your native bees are a pollen spreader.
I see. So that's why they're called super pollinators.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right. Yeah. So there's your, and so can you take an industry and try to combat ignorance? Podcasts are a great means, social media great means, word of mouth great means, and I don't know. Over a period of time, we've just mastered a lot of perspectives to make us more successful. That's a lead into your next question.
Okay, thank you for that.
Now I'm grabbing my taste of wine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You get your wine, yeah. So, I mean, it's very clear you're very passionate about, this whole topic of bees and super knowledgeable. I mean, I had no idea there was 4,000 different types of bees at all. I thought there was just a couple.
I saw a huge bumblebee the other day. It was like
Okay.
the size of a
So
quarter.
those are the queen bees coming out.
Oh, really?
Different life cycle.
Okay.
Okay, smaller thing.
Huge.
Huge. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. Okay. They overwinter as a full queen. Okay. And she's got her own little thingy. She goes her own little. She's by herself. She finds a hole in the ground, gathers, I don't know, whatever she wants to make for her little nest. But she sits there and gets enough nectar. Sits there in her hole, and all this nectar's there. She lays a couple eggs, and then she just nurses and waits for those little eggs to come out. And within a couple of weeks, or maybe I don't know how long, other bumblebees show up. Now she sits back as a royal piece and lays maybe 200 eggs in her whole lifetime, and the hive exists. And by the end of the year, she's dying, and she lays a couple little more queens and a couple little guys to mate with them, and they mate, and off they go. She dies, and the whole hive collapses.
Huh.
Similar to wasps and hornets do that same thing.
Yeah.
So, but in the springtime, they're huge.
Yeah, there.
Bumblebees that are out there queens, and she's gathering her stuff and trying to start her own little nest.
Huh.
If you're lucky, they'll nest in your yard.
Is it early for bumblebees?
No,
this
I
time of
it's
year?
just this time, Pamela.
Oh,
Really?
okay. Because
Yeah.
you always, I say you, I mean me, imagine that it's more of a summer thing, right?
Sure.
Quintessentially English, you're out in the countryside and there's bees and there's, so interesting that it's, this early in the year. But
Where she starts, and then by May, her brood start to show up, and you see more of them.
Okay.
But you'll catch the big queen first,
Oh.
left over from last year. And she nested in your leaves that you left underneath your bushes.
Oh.
So you didn't just
Oh.
become a super clean, polished yard because you've taken away the habitat for the queens to overwinter in.
So what I'm hearing is don't bother raking your yard in the fall and
You've
winter.
got my permission.
It's also great for composting too.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
But leave those bees alone. Okay. So we just mentioned how passionate you are about it, and so if you could enlighten our audience a little bit more on some of those more common misconceptions that homeowners might have, about supporting the bee pollination, because most people are frightened of bees. Not most people, but you do
No,
get a lot of
I'm with
people that
you.
are like, oh, I don't want them in my garden because they might sting me. I've got kids, whatever that looks like. So what are some more of those misconceptions about their own gardens, and how can incorporate in those solitary cavity bees, let's call them mason bees for short, right?
Sure. Yep.
Positively impact the ecosystem of their gardens, rather than seeing them as an interloper or a hassle? How can we make it a much more positive
or a
experience?
predator even. I mean, like I wanted to get a beehive because I know nothing about bees until
Right.
today.
Okay.
But
You
other than I like honey and I like
I love honey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these are useless bees, these mason bees, because they got no honey.
They got no honey. Okay.
Yeah.
But they're not useless because
No,
we just
they're not.
learned that they're super pollinators. So
Right. Okay. Over the years, shifting from let's go make money. I'm an Eagle Scout from eons ago, and so you have that little touch at the beginning of how does nature kind of work. And as you walk in and start learning more and more of the insect, you start trying to think through what's the perspective of the bee versus my want. Okay, so different. We'll talk in a bit about how the design of the houses have changed or should be changing. But more, you were saying, Pamela, what goes into a yard? And a hard part about it, as I leave my wonderful house that's vacuumed, my Roomba, Roomba, what are they called? Roomba, that one. I don't have one, so it's like, okay. But my room, my house, my kitchen is clean, and as I walk out, I want the same thing. I want my lawns nicely tidied. I want my little trims covered. I want all my bushes to be not with little holes in them. And so the want of us humans is to extend our house into nature. And when we begin to do that, I want artificially green lawn. Oh, okay. Around here, moss is the normal that we
Lawn.
used to have.
Yeah.
And I don't want moss in my yard, so I'm going to throw chemicals out there. And I'm going to, when I see some of my leaves starting to get wilty or there's bugs on it, I want perfect leaves. I want perfect lawn. And so what we've learned over time is that native bees and chemicals don't mix. Okay, now I'm not throwing insecticide at them, but this is a few years ago, a peer of mine was out in a cherry field, and he had 2 cherry fields that was pollinated about half an hour apart, so eastern Washington. And one place the bees were doing well, he put 10,000 bees on 10 acres.
Wow.
And he's at this other acreage. And the farmer's really kind of pissed because no bees have nested at all. And this guy gets in the truck and he calls me up and goes, oh my gosh. And to boot, I smell like chemicals. I said, well, I thought you said the guy, he didn't spray. He goes, well, why do you smell like chemicals? So goes to the farmer, he says, I've got 80 acres of cherries surrounded by hundreds of acres of apples.
Oh.
They're spraying all the time. So it's this downwind plume. There's no carcasses anywhere. The bees just know it's wrong and fly off. And so one of the little frustrations of when you're working with native bees into your yard is that you might have an oasis. I've taken my lawn up, I've got flowers everywhere, but my neighbor is out there doing their lawn treatment, and I have no bees. It's like, a little frustration. So one of the requirements of if you're going to go out and lean into nature is to, where you can, lighten the load and talk with your neighbors about, do I need to have pristine something? Loving words.
sometimes a challenging conversation to have.
Sometimes it's challenging, yeah, and we want what we want, but I don't want to have dead or dying lawn, and that's a little piece. And then the other part of what does a bee need is in yards where there's clusters of stuff. You've ever walked back to like a lavender bush and you've seen all these bees? It's not just one little strand. There's a pile of lavender. They're all there. When you have your lavender onesie twosies in your yard, it's a little tougher for the bees to navigate. So your yard has clusters of bright flowers. Okay. Here's the other one. Our want for beauty has the flower industry really pushing. I don't want to sell you flowers that it's a one and done. I need to be selling you flowers every single year. So the flower industry has evolved to make all of their plants sterile. So they're all hybrids, and you have these beautiful flowers that might smell good, but these hybrids have no pollen and little nectar in them.
Huh.
So you'll notice the bees won't go to them. It's beautiful for us, but your natives and your heirlooms that do reseed are the ones where the bees head to. And so a mix of beauty for the humans and useful for the bees would be another little touch.
Okay.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people that want to do gardening around here. What are some practical tips for doing the correct type of plantings in your garden is
great
because
question, Troy.
I'm kind of in my head getting a little overwhelmed. It's like I like petunias, but are they sterile? Because
Right,
I like bees too.
I have no idea. Okay, so I had this exact question.
Yeah.
We did a video a couple weeks ago. There's an expert in right by Olympia, Joe DeLugo, wonderful person. And hey, Joe, he's got native bees all over the place. How do you have such a beautiful yard that's just buzzing? And he goes, well, I go down to my local nursery and I stand there and I find the bush that has all of the bees on it. And I go various times during the year and I buy that bush. It's like, okay. And he goes, don't stop there. There's these tiny little bees around, and go find the bushes that have little black specks on them, really tiny things, and look at those. He goes, buy those ones too. I said, all right. So the
Is
answer
there a list somewhere?
Sure.
Okay.
Want to tell us where?
Oh, you want me to give it to you?
Google that, Troy.
Dandelion. That's all I know. I am not a horticulturalist, and because I'm a bee person, they say, "Oh, Dave, what's this bee?" And I look at it, I say, "It's a bee."
It's a bumblebee.
It's a bumblebee, maybe,
Yeah.
and then go, and then it's a bee. Yeah, it's so.
You're more about the whole thing rather than the minutiae of it.
Nicely said. Nature is not one thing. Nature is balanced.
Yeah.
So and part of it, if you can relax and let nature work its magic, then your yard becomes a little more enjoyable for nature.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from that then is if you are interested in, having more of that diversity in your yard so that those bees, the mason bees will come and help pollinate, you want to go to native plants, but maybe go to a nursery where they have somebody on staff that knows a little bit more about which ones are sterile plants and which ones have more,
Exactly.
and usually the local nurseries have staff that are very, very much, in the know about those things. I mean, if you went to one of the big stores.
You had a list the other day at the chamber luncheon. Yeah.
Those are all, so those little around us, hemos, okay, now I'm going to pass.
Sorry, I put you on the spot.
No, right around Woodinville, there's
Yeah.
about 4 nurseries, even Sunnyside, that they lean into the native side of things. And
Okay.
I think the Northwest, at least, is hearing this vibe that natives are better than hybrids. And so you're starting to see a lot of these. Oxbow Farm is a super organic place that's thinking these things through, and they're trying to be good stewards of earth and bringing forward natives and heirlooms that are then supplied. These Oxbow, I think, supplies the Sunnysides, the nurseries with their stuff. So more and more nurseries are leaning into these cell, and they don't have chemicals. There might have a bug on them, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
There might be a little leaf isn't perfect, but the minute you put in your yard, it's like, eh.
Right.
And when you put the hybrids in the yard, they're typically raised with neonicotinoids is a big chemical word. Neonics.
That's easy for you to say.
Yeah, exactly. Nice job, Troy. There's
That's from smoking too much.
I'm trying.
Sorry.
Oh dear.
I want to put perfection in my yard, and the only way to sell you perfection is to have chemicals on its thing. And when you put this plant and you put it in your ground, the groundwater plume knocks off your microbial communities and your worms, and so it's death below, and if they're systemic, so it's just like we just don't know. And I think the gardeners around the Northwest are starting to hear, maybe I could be putting in plants that are helpful to nature,
Right.
and have beauty, right?
Yeah. And I
And
think,
friendly for mason bees.
yeah, but I was also, when you were talking there, thinking about this need for perfection, but nature in itself is perfect the way it is. So why would you want to then go ruin it with lots of chemicals if you can help it?
You say perfect. It's perfectly chaotic.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's
Okay,
somebody's perfect.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, you're saying loving words, Pamela. But
That's my
it's,
job.
Yeah, it is. It's tough to figure that out. And okay, I'm reading. Here's a little thing about environmental impact and community engagement. This is okay.
Yeah, so I want to kind of move on from the homeowners, because they can do their part, and there's plenty of resources where they can we talked about the nurseries and so on and so forth. But you guys do a lot of different initiatives at Crown Bees. So, how do your environmental conservation efforts, how do they leak into the community? Can you tell us about some initiatives that you might have going on? And of course, Troy and I know where we're going to go with this, but yeah. Partnerships that you have.
I'm interested. I'm going to make it short so y'all.
No, you talked about it at the chamber yesterday, take it away.
Okay. I'm also in Rotary and joined that a couple of years ago because of their environmental bend. And one of the things this Rotary Club has decided to do is to lean into groups that are doing what they do rather than create it on their own. And so my quarter was spring. I'm a bee company, so let's go think through flowers or bees or something. And I worked into the Pollinator Pathway Northwest. Is a wonderful little nonprofit, really full of just doing people. And how do I fan their flames? And so we kind of walked into, well, let's go put wine barrels across Woodinville. And this will be, a bit from now when these are already out there. But we put wine barrels across the town and reached out to the flower people of Oxbow Farms. Mulbach's was back then. And so you throw these barrels out there, and stage one was there. We had 20 people, and 18 of the people say, let's do it again. So now this season, let's go get another 20. So now we're at 40. And on the backs of these simple statements, we're putting barrels of flowers out there. Someone's gathering the dirt. The Woodinville Garden Club's putting things in. 21 Acres is involved. You've got Pollinated Pathways. You've got the Earth Club from Woodinville High School. All of these groups are all involved to beautify our tiny little town. And so can you move that to 60, then 80, then 100 before you finally say, it's too many barrels. But so there's a little element. And yesterday we were sitting at a chamber meeting. I was sitting next to Michelle,
Michelle Evans.
Michelle Evans.
Yeah.
Wonderful human. She said, hey, Dave, let me introduce you to the Rails to Trails group.
Yeah.
And so you've got 80 miles worth of this railroad that's been pulled down. How do we help get you involved with putting pollinator pathways on 80 to 90 miles worth of trails? And so it's pushing past Woodinville into Redmond and Renton.
Up to Snohomish even.
All these things.
Yeah.
So it's not just putting the flowers out there, it's also messaging. You can do this in your yard as well. And so it's, I'm always thinking through your aspect, Pamela. It's not doing something. How do you market? How do you show that it's doing something that you can do this too?
Well, what I thought was interesting at the chamber event that we were at, and you spoke for a few minutes about, the pollinator pathways. You showed a slide of a town with no flowers, nothing in it, and then you showed one with all these beautiful tulips, and where would you want to live? And it was, when you look at that picture, you're not actually in that space, you're just looking at it, but you feel uplifted anyway, just even looking at it. So I appreciate what you're trying to do and, bring more of this.
Vitality.
Yeah, that's exactly the right word. It is vitality. It's a saturation of color and joyfulness by having these plants there. So I just wanted, for the audience that don't know what we're talking about with the barrels, is that you offered out a pre-made up barrel with plants that are going to flowers that
all through the
summer in a barrel, that businesses, it's predominantly been businesses, but could homeowners purchase one?
No, not
Okay.
purchase, leased. We want to have it downtown Woodinville.
So it's $100, how much?
$150.
$150. You bring the barrel, you set it all up, and you
And-
make sure it's watered.
You're going to water for me.
Yeah.
Oh,
But it
we're
has
gonna
a little
water.
self.
I
is
have
it
to
like
do
a-
something.
It's not hard.
But now,
Troy.
so Dave the engineer. Oh my gosh.
Is it like like the wicking system
Yes.
for watering? I just did that in my vegetable garden. But yeah.
Correct.
Wow.
This is so you water it like once a week versus and then we just trashed. We took a couple of these barrels apart a couple of weeks ago, and all the roots are just long, 12-inch roots versus had you just been watered from the surface only.
Yeah.
They're shallow because the water's at the top, and so this process is, and I lovingly reached out to Woodinville City and said, hey, how often are you guys watering? Oh, every single day. I said, what if you changed your watering patterns and you got this type of a process? Could you then reduce your labor down to once a week? Huh. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's just, it's something we don't think about, and so there is an idea that these barrels will create beauty in town,
Right.
and can you do this at home? Here's of course a little QR code that you can scan and says, oh look, come here, you can do this yourself. So
Yeah.
that's
Okay. So there
So
is.
the QR code takes you to
a pollinated pathway website that says, oh,
you can
this.
do these types of plants.
Yeah.
And, oh,
Yeah,
well, that's
I mean,
right.
there's actually a big list there, and so
Okay.
it's a
Perfect. I
That's
mean,
where we need to go then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I love the wicking system because I
Yeah.
just did that this last weekend. So, but yeah, I just wanted to clarify for anybody listening that any businesses out there for this season can lease one of those barrels and put it in front of their buildings.
Okay.
And
Yeah, and back up a little bit. You were saying I had two slides. There was a start, downtown,
just
whatever.
downtown, yeah.
The next one kind of similar, but with flowers everywhere. That's actually was a study done, and
Mm-hmm.
they said the humans had more happiness, were healthier, and so why is this? And they were saying that nature, we are a creature of nature, and we should be leaning into that as well. So
Right.
that's the.
well, especially here in the PNW because we all like to be outside.
And if you don't have that, the slide that came after that, the only animals that can survive in a stark environment are crows and rats,
Yeah.
scavengers. Okay, so
Sorry, Colin the Crow.
yeah, exactly. So this is the path that this particular little initiative.
I
Let's
think Bothell needs more flowers.
Yeah.
That's where
Yeah.
all the crows go at night.
and that's where my little company. We've got we have a thing called bee mail. A couple times a month we say, hey, do this precisely. And so we have, I don't know, 30 to 40,000 people across the country that are learning these little snippets at a time,
Yeah.
watching these videos at a time. And we're going to have this thing plugged in our news feed as well,
Yeah.
because
Cool.
people across the country can listen in and just say, oh, and the more we combat ignorance, the
Yeah.
better off we are.
And I think it's probably worth pointing out that you don't have to, from my perspective, you don't have to do everything all at once. You just
No.
start with one thing. So take the idea of the barrel that you're doing for businesses and maybe put one on your front porch. Create your own. But for you, that initiative is you've started there, but I see that becoming something bigger so that we can make our city very beautiful and do it in a way that is going to help the environment and the bee population and make everybody feel happy.
That one. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, besides the wicking system, is there any other revolutionary things that help with the mason bees in there?
So when we say the word, now we're getting a little deeper. Okay, this
Yeah.
is a whole nesting bee, cavity nesting bee. Its life cycle is simple. It overwinters as an adult, and they come out about when your dandelions are coming out. So your fruit trees, or maybe your cherry trees. The boys emerge first in a little nesting hole that they're living in 6 inches long. The males are on the outside, unfertilized egg. The females are on the inside of this fertilized egg. And the reason it's like that is probably crows getting at the front get the useless males. But so the males will come out first. They hang around, wait for the females, and then about now, about now is March through April, these bees come out. And the bees that my company carries, these are a mud-using bee. They find a hole by themselves. It's their own little hole. So she owns it. She lays a scent. This is mine.
Huh?
She goes out and gathers 30 trips worth of pollen, stuffs it back in the hole, lays an egg, looks like about a grain of rice. And she seals that little chamber with mud, moist mud.
Huh.
Okay, so if we were in the Sahara Desert, okay, and there's cactus plants everywhere, the bees out there are gathering pollen and nectar, laying an egg, and they're sealing their little chamber with cactus pulp,
Huh.
or creosote from mesquite trees, or chewed up leaf bits, or resin from Douglas firs, or pebbles. So all these little bees are all pollen, egg, something, pollen, egg, something. And as they work their way out of the hole, you've got these 6 to 12 chambers of eggs that were laid. These eggs they hatch, they consume the pollen, and now you've got larvae inside there, and during the summer they metamorphose into, they spin a cocoon, they metamorphose into an adult bee, and they just sit there through the winter on their fuel tanks from last fall, and finally when their time comes about right, out they come.
Huh.
So there's your life cycle of spring bees. The summer bees, a little different. They overwinter as larvae, and they use the heat from May to June to metamorphose, and they show up June, July type thing. So very simple. Eggs laid this year are next year's bees.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay, there's a little history on it, or
Yeah,
history
no,
of life sciences.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I mean, who knew it was that complex? I mean, you see a bee
Or
flying
so
around,
simple.
you don't think much of it. There's
No.
a bee. Is it a nuisance to you? For some people, it might be, but for others, it's like, oh, that's marvelous.
Okay, but in the fall, when there's a little hornet that comes by, everyone screams and throws back, bee! It's like, no, it's a yellow bug. Yeah, there's no fuzz on it. It's a hornet.
Yeah.
The misnomer of all things flying are, bees and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got a bad rap.
Yeah, so with the hornet, okay, here's a little hack for you. They're very territorial. Above your table, go take a brown lunch sack and ball it up so it's still kind of big, and just hang it up above your table. And I'm not going to go take food from someone that already has a house there. So you can kind of avoid the hornets. Not all of them, but most of them will kind of avoid a paper sack up above your table.
Really?
Huh, so
Do
just
they
hang
think
it
it's
from your
another
umbrella?
nest?
Yeah, right,
Wow.
yep. And then I'm even going to, I think it's kind of cool watching this guy. We put a leftover plate down at the end of the table, and we shoo them away from our stuff, and they go down there and just feed off that. So it's,
Wow, that's one way to do it.
Well,
You're
yeah.
left alone to enjoy your meal, and
That's-
they get
yeah.
something as well.
and appreciate nature. Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot of information about
It
bees that I
is.
didn't know I
Okay, I was
needed
trying
to
to
know.
make this simple. Did
No,
we?
no. It is pretty simple, but it's also fascinating that the scale of the number of different types and what they do, and I think we all just see one running around the garden, flying around. They're flying, we're running, trying to get away from it, as though it's it's something awful that we don't want in our space. And
That-
it's,
And so, yeah, one of the things that I combat against, a lot of the word's out. There's these bee hotels everywhere, and most of them nowadays are made over shores in China. And I call them pieces of stuff.
we're being polite.
So
I
this
take it.
POSs come across, and they're sold everywhere. And the frustration is people are just making money. Okay, that's what they can do. And in the innovation side of things, when you start watching through what goes on, these little bee hotels in your backyard aren't natural. You say, well, they're using it, right? But what's natural? And natural is an old tree scag that's outside the house. It's kind of ready to fall over, and the woodpeckers have drilled holes into it, and the bees are using those little holes, and so they're using these dead trees as the houses, or they're for the nesting structure. We've taken them all down. Okay, so in nature, these holes are far apart, and when you aggregate now, so I've got a house that's tight, and I've got all those little nesting holes all right here. This isn't natural. There's a gob amount of pollen and nectar. Who wouldn't want to come in here and walk between all these holes and steal from the bees? Okay, and now the larvae are inside there. This is midsummer. Who wouldn't want? There's hundreds of little larvae. Who wouldn't want to steal these? Now they're adult bees. Crows are pulling these things out, so it's not natural. Okay, so we've learned that if you want to have your bees thrive, I'm managing the bees. Okay, I'm adding this man-made structure with holes all tightly there, and if I want to do something, if I do nothing, look there, if I do nothing, these pests that were attracted by my pollen and nectar are still in there. I did nothing. So in the spring, the bees come out that are there, and the pests are still there. The bees reuse those same holes, and now you've got pests that are just, come to me, mama. And they're just feeding these pests, pollen mites, all these little different things are inside there. Over a period of years, you have mostly pests and few bees. And so you've actually wound up killing most of the bees by having a POS in your backyard. Loving words. Okay.
You're being very polite.
I am, yes, this is a public channel, so I don't want to be kicked off the air. Bleep.
We know what you're saying.
Yeah. And so what we've learned is our products, you can take these nesting holes out, reeds, wood trays, and you could open things up in the fall and go, oh, let me sort out the bad guys and keep the good guys. We teach you what to do. But that's this little piece, and even there, I was wrong. Okay, and this is where the innovation. This is just a couple months ago. It's like, well, this still isn't right, and so we're now saying, take a bee house that looks nice and stuff a bunch of just branches and sticks into it. Okay. So there's my ugliness. And now I'm going to take my beautiful little reeds and I'm going to push them between there. So I've got holes and branches. And now it's really messy looking. But to a bee flying in, it's easy for them to find their little house. And the pests have a tougher time to move between these little pieces. So messiness. It's like, man.
Chaos.
Chaos. Back to the
The
wine.
wine. It was a perfect pick
wasn't
for today.
Yeah, we try to. You know, there's some cool things. There's some patents out there that says this is the scent that makes these bees come home. You know? And so there's little weird things like that. The other part is when you're a small little company, and we're the 800-pound gorilla across the country. If you want to stay at the top, people copy what you're doing. And so the only way to stay at the top is to innovate.
Yeah.
And so it's just every year you got to come up with one or two new things. It's just the
Just like nature, everything's always evolving.
it is.
Yes.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing that's constant is change.
Yes.
Sure. You
That's
should.
it, right?
Nice job, Sensei.
Yeah, you like that?
I think that might have been a motivational Monday that we did on social media a while back too.
I've always said that in real estate. You know,
Yeah.
the only thing that stays constant in real estate is change.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Well, Dave, thank you for enlightening us. So we always like to round out the show with, this segment of the show with our local insights and hidden gems. So, as someone
I've
who's
got one.
been in the Woodinville community for a while, and
Yeah. Okay. So I've been here a long time, 25 years.
yeah,
Okay.
And I was down at I was down there waiting for pizza at Pizza Coop.
Okay.
And I'm waiting. I was too early. And there was this lady, this big old dog, sitting outside during the summer. Wow, you know. And this dog's just panting. I said, "Where'd you come from?" She goes, "Oh, Wellington Golf Course up here above Costco."
yeah.
Okay. What do you mean? It's it's a failed golf course. She goes, "Well, have you been there?" We're there 2 or 3 times a week. We got a big old Labradoodle. It is when they couldn't sell it to BMX or whatever was going to be there, and so now the school system owns it.
yeah.
Hidden gem. You got, I don't know, 2 or so miles of huge dog trail, dog park. Dogs off leash. Everyone there is with a dog. There are no dogs on a leash. It is wonderful.
That's just up the hill from Costco.
Just up the hill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, nice little windy road. You can park on
Yeah.
either side of the road. That's my jam.
I see people there all the time when I drive by.
Yeah. Okay. I had no idea. Now, is it actually designated as a dog park?
Oh,
or
no.
is everyone just decided?
Oh, no.
Yeah. No.
No.
I
Yeah.
did wonder. Hence the
Yeah,
reason for the
that's
question.
yeah. Yeah, do not enter at sign of getting shot or something. You know.
Yeah.
But,
Oh, nice.
yeah.
That's friendly.
Yeah, that's friendly. No, it's not that, but it is, I think, school property, and
Yeah.
it's awesome.
So come and
There's-
get it while you can.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
until some school's built.
Yeah. No, I love it when it's like this one. We've not any idea that that's what's happening up there.
Okay, but now I've just ruined my dog park. All these
I
people
know,
are
all
gonna
these
go
people are
show
gonna go
up
up
there.
there now.
Yeah, that was like when we talked about that trail with the reverend that was on a number of months ago.
Yeah.
And we talked about a trail, and you were like, "What trail?" It's like, "Yeah,
Trail?
Trail?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I'll tell you afterwards."
Well, thanks for inviting me. This was
No,
good.
this is great. So at the end of, we're going to take a quick break in a moment and come back with our real estate roundup. And then at the end, we want to let our listeners know where they can find out more information about you and Crown Bees, the initiatives that you have, and any resources that that they can find through your website and just get in contact with you. So we're going to take a really quick break, and then I'm going to give Troy his real estate question
my
of the
gosh,
week.
what
Are
do
you
we
ready?
Ooh.
All right, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
All right.
It's been over 30 years since my dad opened Ferguson Floors right here on the east side, helping homeowners with flooring. But it's not just about flooring, because there's a difference when you care about what you do. It's in kindness and respect. It's in honesty and a firm handshake. My name is Bryce Ferguson, and we're committed to it again every single day, right here at Ferguson Floors. Find us on the east side at www.fergusonfloors.com.
Welcome back to TLC, 10 Life Community Podcast. We just had a fascinating conversation with Dave Hunter from Crown Bees, and now it's time to see if we can stump Troy with the real estate question
Stump
of the
him.
week. I'm not really going
I
to
know.
stump him. He knows
we
what
should
he's
do this
talking
show
about.
live sometime. see if
Well,
you can stump me.
After my flubbing earlier on, couldn't get my words out, like Seattle and
It's usually
sipping on
me that
six-
cocks up a
It
name
is
or
usually
something.
you.
Yeah.
Yes, today it was my turn today. But anyway, so yes, it's real estate roundup time. I have a question for you, Troy. Are you ready?
Oh my gosh. No.
Okay,
Yes.
Well, tough. All right, I'm going to give you maybe a scenario, and there's a question buried in
Okay.
there. So I have a mortgage, and I want to decrease my monthly payment, but I don't want to refinance. And the reason I don't want to refinance is one, right now the interest rates aren't favorable to do that, and it costs money. Is there a way that I can reduce my monthly mortgage payment without refinancing?
There is several ways to do that, but the one that comes to mind is called a recast. So recasting your mortgage is going to recast the schedule. It's not going to change any of the terms, but it's going to lower your payment because you're going to have a lower principal balance at that point. And that can be done in a number of different ways. If you have a lump sum, typically takes a lump sum payment to get that started with the bank, and it's going to vary depending on your loan. So I can't tell you it's going to be this amount of money or that amount of money, but
Right.
some sort of lump sum. If you got inheritance or a rich uncle or something
Got a
like that.
bonus?
Got a bonus, yeah, or you've just been saving up some money and you're looking at it and didn't even know about recasting your mortgage to decrease your your monthly payment. It's a fantastic thing. I've had clients use it before where they have bought a house before selling their property.
Mm-hmm.
And so after they weren't able to put a 40% down payment,
Right.
they were barely able to scrape down 10 or 20% to get into the new house. And then when they sell their house, they've got this big chunk of money.
Mm-hmm.
They go to the bank and recast the mortgage, so that's going to lower their monthly payment. But it's not going to change any of the terms or the amortization, so it's still going to be the same interest rate, the same length of time that you're going to be paying on the mortgage. But
It's just that amount that comes out of your bank account every month is a little bit smaller.
yeah, and you can take the difference and invest that or put it back into savings.
So do most vendors, I'm saying mortgage holders, do they know this? It's a very common practice.
They don't really like the practice because it means less interest for them typically.
Right. And a little more paperwork for them.
A little
to
more
adjust
paperwork to
things.
do, yeah. And there's FHA, VA, USDA, and some Fannie and Freddie products you can do this with. So I mean, it's specific to the type of loan you have, but most people don't know you can do it at all.
Yeah.
So
Hence the reason for the question. I came
Yeah.
across it and I was like, oh, this is interesting.
good one.
Yeah, I'd not heard of it before. So basically you take your lump sum, for those people listening, you go to your bank and you say, all right, I want to pay it, make sure you say pay it to the principal,
Yes.
not the loan as a whole, because
Right.
that makes a big difference. If
And
you're paying it the
then
whole,
recast.
then recast it and they reamortize it, and so then you have a lower payment every month.
yep.
Yeah. So
Nice.
I hadn't heard of it. That's why I wanted to bring it to the attention of our listeners.
And there are potentially some fees involved, but they're definitely a lot less than refinancing.
Right. And
Yeah.
for most people, refinancing isn't a great way to go right now.
No,
So,
with
yeah.
the higher interest rate environment, no,
Why
for
would
sure.
you? Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So
Well, that was the real estate question of the week. Good
So
job.
last week we had reverse mortgages.
We did,
This week
yeah.
we have recasting.
Mhm.
So they're both.
And I'm going to have to come up with another one for next
Yeah.
week, aren't I? Oh, gosh.
I think we might talk about the NAR lawsuit next time.
Yeah, that's probably a good one to talk
Yeah.
about. Absolutely. Yeah.
Everyone's asking me about it.
Okay. All right. I will write that in my notes for
So there's
next.
your teaser.
There's the teaser. We're going to be talking about the lawsuit. Okay. All right. So back to Dave. If people want to find out more information about mason bees, I'm just because it's slightly less of a mouthful than the solitary cavity.
You said it anyway.
Exactly.
I did.
Yeah, you did.
So how can people get hold of you? Find out more information. Take it away.
We actually care about our customers. We answer the phone. We respond to requests for information. Our website, crownbees, CROWNBEES.com, is chock full of probably 50 to 60%. Hey, learn this, watch this. and then 40%, we have stuff to buy. But so we'll, you want to learn more, go to our website. Here's a little leaf on the corner that gets you right to one of our people. So we're there for you. And I think ultimately it just combats the ignorance out there, and what you learn, then you become the expert.
Yep.
And pass it on to your neighbor.
Yeah.
Perfect. So that's the website. Can they call you, or do you just do live chat on your website?
You can call us, 425-949-7954. But here's what we noticed a while ago.
Okay.
We do have our store that you can come in, and when you come in, you're going to probably take 15 or 20 minutes of our time to ask questions, etc. When you call, it's about maybe an 8 to 10 minute event. When you ask us a question, like an email question, we can handle that in about a minute. Okay, and so our preference is send us an email, info@crownbees.com. But we take all sorts of people that need a little more info, and so here's your lesson of customer service.
You are a great resource for the area for promoting native growth, bees, and just Woodinville and the surrounding area as a whole. Whoville. Yes, Dave likes to call it Whoville. So,
And if you own a business, get yourself a pollinator pathway. You're expanding by 100% this year, right? That's your goal?
Yeah, that's
20
our goal.
last year,
Yeah.
20 this year, so 40 in total.
Yeah, and they are very pretty. If you haven't seen them, do you have pictures of them on the website? I don't remember.
When you go to the Rotary website, you'll find, nope, it's,
Okay.
the
Well,
common
yet.
man has a
Not
tough
yet.
time finding it. Nice job, Pamela.
sorry.
Put him on the spot.
Ends on a wah.
Okay. Well,
Hey,
Dave
well, you
will
know
tell you
what?
where to find it.
If you have a business, get one, and then you know what it looks like.
There you go.
Exactly.
Nice job.
All right. So, Troy, if people want to get hold of you, they've got questions about the real estate market, how to get into a house, more about recasting or reverse mortgages
Yes.
or any of that kind of thing, where would they get hold of you?
Porch pounder.
You had to, didn't you?
Yeah, it didn't come up this.
It did
this-
not.
No, last time
I
it
know.
came up.
Okay.
I didn't even have to bring it up.
Well,
So
you
this
could
is
have
not
brought
a
it up with the
porch
bees,
pounder,
but it's not a porch pounder, no.
10hometeam.com. You can find out all things 10 Home Team there. And for more specific information, oftentimes the conversation's better for me and a little bit quicker than email because things can get convoluted, and then your situation is super specific typically in real estate. So phone call 206-504-3660, but you can start with an email to schedule that call.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay, well, this was fascinating. I learned a lot today, and we had great wine.
We did.
And we had
Yeah.
great wine.
We had great
Yeah.
wine.
Chaotically,
Chaotic, great wine,
wine.
great conversation. What more do you need in a podcast? All right, well, that's all we have time for this week. Thanks again for joining us, Dave.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
We'll see you next time.
All right, cheerio.
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 Bye.
Thinking of upgrading to your dream home but hesitant about the selling process? Introducing the Buy Before You Sell program at 10 Home Team and Troy Anderson. Picture this. You find your dream home, but your current one hasn't hit the market yet. No problem. With our innovative program, you can buy your new home before listing your current one. That's right. No need to wait. Move in seamlessly from one home to the next without the stress of timing. When you partner with us, you get more than just a transaction. You get peace of mind knowing that your real estate journey is in excellent hands. Because at 10 Home Team, we're committed to making your dream a reality one step at a time. Ready to make a move? Contact us today, 206-504-3660, 10hometeam.com. That's 206-504-3660. Troy Anderson and 10 Home Team, where your dream home journey begins before you even sell.